Frontier by Maggot Moshpit, Chapter 23. Kenton stood at the airlock before Tony, his paws folded behind his back.
Hello again, Hurt.
Kenton chuckled at Tony's use of his first name.
It's been a while, Rick.
Gomez's smile widened.
You two know each other?
Kenton nodded.
We've met.
In battle.
Tony was backed by a complement of his officers, while Kenton only stood with his son and first officer, Frey.
Well, it's peacetime now. Would you like a tour of the ship?
This is strictly business. We're going to search your holds, and, well, you know what happens then.
Kenton patted Frey on the back and laughed.
Well, go right ahead. My son will show you the way. He's a fine young officer.
I'm not nearly as good as you, sir.
Gomez looked at Tony.
Modest, too.
Tony understood the real meaning behind the look. If they had subverted Kenton's plan, why wasn't he at least a little bit nervous? Tony concluded that Kenton must have been a better actor than he gave him credit for. He, Gomez, and the assembled officers followed Frey as he chatted away, pointing out things on the walls. Kenton headed back to the cockpit to send an encoded message. Marcus was halfway through the Frontier's holds, despite being alone. He muttered to himself as he worked.
Another crate full of stem bolts. Why did I have to end up on this assignment? I bet he did this on purpose. Trying to fix my anxiety through fire. Like it'll ever undo.
He almost jumped out of his skin when he heard a noise behind him. He took a deep breath and told himself he had nothing to worry about.
They're intelligent life forms, after all.
He looked back and saw Serlia walking towards him, the one with the big teeth. He turned back around and continued sifting through stem bolts.
Can I help you?
He heard her lean against a crate.
Tell me something.
Marcus was prepared to deflect her question if she was trying to get information out of him.
Why are you afraid of Atrians?
He was surprised. Maybe she had no idea why he was here.
I'm not.
Celia chuckled as she watched him look through the same crate over and over. Something about this human intrigued her. She had seen humans that hated Atrians, didn't care, or even loved them. Never afraid, though.
That's a lie. You're quivering in your boots.
He sighed, stopped sifting through the stem bolts, and finally moved to another crate.
It's none of your business anyway.
She followed him.
Hey, I won't bite.
Marcus wished she would just go away.
You look like you were going to... earlier.
Sorry about that. Morning grumps.
He stood up and turned around abruptly.
What do you want? I have a job to do. I have to complete my inspection.
She realized he was a little more freaked out than she thought, so she backed off and tried to appear less intimidating.
I won't get in your way. I just want to talk is all. I've never met a human who's afraid of Atrians.
Marcus found that hard to believe.
Really?
I've met humans who are seething with hate for us. Lef even tells me he met a human whose sister is married to an Atrian, I think. Fear never seems to be a huge issue, though.
Marcus, his head buried in a crate, saw a flash of teeth in his mind's eye.
So anyway, what is it you're looking for? Hey, are you alright?
I'm fine.
Serlia, I need to talk to you.
Lef was standing at the door, tapping his paw. She ran over. Lef closed the door behind her.
Serlia, stop bugging our guest.
Why?
Because it's polite?
Lef, you're a terrible liar.
He scratched his arm.
Look, if you let something slip, you could get us in trouble.
Lef, it's time to cut the crap. What the hell is going on here?
I wish I could tell you, but... you know what? Screw it.
He leaned over and whispered the short version into her ear.
Huh. That's not as bad as I thought. I suppose we have no choice. But what if Marcus finds them?
Lef paced the floor.
That's what I'm worrying about. I sent a message to Canton, but I don't know when he'll get back.
Serlia glanced back at the door.
I have an idea. I was going to do it anyway, but now it kind of works out.
She walked back into the cargo bay and sat nearby where Marcus was working.
You intrigue me.
Marcus jumped again, almost as hard as the first time. He mentally slapped himself in the face, then decided now was the time he would at least try and hold a conversation with an Atrian. He stood and turned around, looking her in the eye.
Really? Thanks.
Yeah. You met Zach?
Marcus had talked to Zach, but he acted very Atrian, and even spoke Atrian at first. It was perhaps more unsettling than Atrians themselves. She blinked, and Marcus realized it was the first time she had blinked since he met her.
When you talk to Zach, he's kinda arrogant. He trashed my apartment once, too. I guess I don't get to meet many quiet humans. No offense.
None taken.
This isn't bad, Marcus kept telling himself. At least her eyes are nice to look at. Canton sat reading Left's message, which was waiting for him when he got to his office. This complicated things, but Canton had an idea. He began typing a response. Down in the holds, Frey continued showing the Solar Federation officers around, even while the officers dug through their small collection of gold alloy crates. Sensor experts were even using a scanner array in the hold to scan for the components, all under the guise of a biohazard that might have gotten on board. At least, that's what the official records would say. Everyone knew what was really going on. Even Frey, who played his part as a host well. Tony stopped him in the middle of a history lesson on Atrian drive systems.
Frey, I'd like to have a word with my first officer, if you please.
Frey nodded.
As you wish.
He stepped aside, smiling. Tony turned to Gomez, his mask of politeness gone.
They aren't here.
I can see that, Commander.
But why not? I was sure the colony ship was a decoy. Besides, Star would have found something by now. Unless they did away with him.
Gomez turned around, anticipating the commander's next order.
Alright, everybody. Back on Mary Celeste. On the double.
Everyone froze for a moment, then there was a frenzy of activity as the crewmen scrambled to get everything packed up. Gomez followed Tony as he walked back to the shuttle.
Contact the New Vegas and tell them to accompany us. We have to catch that ship before it gets to where it's going.
Frey watched the airlock close after a few minutes, then he rushed to a wall communicator and called Canton.
Father, the humans have discovered the ruse. They're going after the frontier.
Well, the game is up. Come back up to the bridge. I'll warn the captain he's got company.
Lef was reading Canton's first message and mulling over its contents when he received the second message. He skimmed it, felt the shock run down his spine, then read it again, carefully.
Ah, fuck.
He ran down the hall to the cockpit and caught himself on the doorframe, poking his head inside and calling to Feldo.
Hey, Feldo, is there any way we can increase speed?
Maybe. Why?
We're behind schedule. Hurry up and do it. I don't care about the risks.
Sure, Lef. Take a breather. You look terrible.
Terrible? Nah, I'm cool as a fan.
Lena was watching the exchange, and she stood and walked up to Lef. He seemed to calm down a little when he saw her.
Hi, Peach.
Lef, I checked the coordinates you set. That's a restricted system. We aren't allowed in there.
We got clearance.
But why did we get clearance? What are we carrying?
Lef stepped forward and reached out to touch her arm, but she backed away. It was at that moment that Lef realized he had made a huge mistake. Here he was, chased by 2 Solar Federation cruisers, his crew quickly losing trust in him.
Look, guys, I'll explain everything soon, but we really need to increase speed or... we just need to.
Lef, you told me...
I know. I've been ordered to keep secrets from you, otherwise I'll... disappear. And you would too. I can't risk telling anyone else.
Feldo frowned.
Wait, who did you tell?
What? I told Celia, but I trust her not to let anything slip.
Despite her best efforts, Lena's ears fell.
And you don't trust us?
Lef cursed himself and shook his head.
No, that's not what I meant. Look, just trust me on this.
How can you ask us to trust you if you don't trust us?
Lena poked him in the chest to emphasize her point.
He
looked over at Feldo, who was giving a very disapproving look, then back at Lena, who looked ready to scratch him with her claws.
If I told you everything, which I really want to do, it might result in all our deaths. It's not that I don't trust you guys, it's that I want to protect you. There's too much at stake.
There was silence, then Feldo sighed.
Is it really that serious?
Yes.
I'll get you your speed, Lef. But I do expect an explanation.
Lena went back to her station.
I will too.
Great. You guys are great. Now, if you'll excuse me.
He ran down the hall a short way, then darted into the nearby cargo bay. He raced to the crates containing the secret weapon components and threw one open. He looked around. The only other things in the cargo bay was a bunch of empty crates, as the colony needed all but this cargo space. He recalled what the message had instructed him to do, and he began hauling crates to the far end of the wall. Marcus laughed as he dug through the last crate in the room.
Did he really? No way!
Celia held her aching ribs as she told him the story.
Yep. You couldn't expect him to know what it was, though, but it was still funny.
He stood, finished with the crate.
You know, I never thought I'd say this, but...
Marcus made a quick mental note that she could still be the enemy before finishing his sentence.
You're pretty fun to talk to.
Celia blushed, then was mad at herself for doing so.
Oh, thanks. Likewise.
He headed for the door, but Celia stopped him, extending her paw for a shake. Marcus looked for her claws, but they weren't extended. He nervously took it and shook once, then quickly walked to the next room. Marcus thought to himself how funny her paw was. He never guessed Atrians could retract their claws, and he never would have guessed her paw would be that soft. He sighed as he stood in front of the next-to-last cargo bay. Celia ran after him.
Marcus, you don't want to go in there.
He quickly turned around and placed his hand on his pistol, checking her over for a weapon.
And why wouldn't I want to go in?
The door opened quickly, and 2 wolf children ran full force into his legs, almost knocking him over. One looked up at him and blinked slowly.
Sorry, Zach.
They ran off down the hall, giggling.
Because it's full of colonists. Atrian colonists.
He turned around and looked at the hive of activity in the converted cargo bay. People cooking, playing, reading, eating, and talking. He stepped back, and the doors closed.
Oh.
He'd never seen so many Atrians in one place before, but he wanted to test his courage. If he was able to talk to Celia, he would be able to search that bay. Besides, he thought he saw a couple gold alloy-reinforced crates in there.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
He stepped forwards again, hesitated, then walked into the cargo bay. He spotted the crate on the other side of the bay, and he started walking, keeping his eyes on the crate. Celia walked next to him, and he didn't know if it made him feel better to have her there, or worse.
Alright. I'll just quickly check this.
He opened the crate and looked inside. It was full of clothes. He reached in and dug through them.
Hey, get your hands out of there!
An Atrian woman walked up and wagged a claw in his face.
What are you doing? Rooting around in the dirty clothes bin?
She bared her teeth at him.
Amma, he meant no harm. Leave him alone.
She huffed and turned around to continue working on whatever.
Fine. Just put everything back where you found it.
He coughed and looked in the crate again.
There's nothing in here.
He felt a tug on his uniform as he turned around. There were the wolf children again, pulling on his shirt.
Hey! Play with us!
Not now.
One of them dug his short claws into the fabric of Marcus's pant leg. He jumped back and almost screamed.
Let's go.
The children were about to pester him further when Taliko showed up and shooed them away.
Go away with you! Stop bugging our visitor! Sorry about that.
She smiled widely, showing her sharp teeth. Marcus turned around as he heard a noise.
Oi! Who's your friend?
The biggest biped Marcus had ever seen loomed over him and smiled as well. Rackham's towering stature was twice as intimidating to Marcus, and he almost had a panic attack.
Bye!
He dashed as fast as he could out of the bay and down the hall towards the Laxar pen. He burst inside and leaned against the rail, catching his breath. He didn't even look up when one of the Laxar licked the side of his head and grunted at him.
Marcus, they're just being friendly. Just being friendly.
He heard the door behind him open, and he glanced back, seeing it was only Sir Leah.
Sorry about that. It was a little intimidating.
Celia leaned against the rail next to him and petted the Laxar.
I used to hate humans, you know.
Really? I mean, that's understandable. May I ask why?
She sighed and grabbed a handful of grain from a nearby bucket and fed it to one of the Laxar.
Same as almost everybody else, I suppose. My parents, they shipped supplies to Atrian battleships during the war.
Her tone dropped, and she spoke in a very soft voice.
They never came back.
I'm sorry.
Marcus liked peace as much as the next guy, despite working for the military. He liked exploring the stars and helping out in emergencies. He knew war could break out any day, and he accepted that. Which is why he didn't hate Atrians, or necessarily blame them. Celia shook her head.
You aren't to blame. You aren't nearly old enough to have served in the war. Besides, they were just following orders.
Marcus took some grain and let the Laxar eat out of his hand. It made a purring sound that was strangely comforting.
Which is a damn shame. The only one to blame is the one you can't get revenge on.
I hear that.
She looked at him, eyebrow raised.
Oh?
Oh, nothing.
She placed her paw on his hand.
You can tell me. It'll probably help, whatever it is.
Oh, okay.
Celia smiled. She was effectively keeping Marcus occupied, not searching the cargo bays. She also thought he was kind of cute for a human. Marcus really didn't think the components were on board at that point. Tony had probably already found them. He cleared his throat.
I was 8 when the war started. I was living with my family on a border planet. We were farmers. I remember my father, when we got the news, he just scoffed and said, Earth finds a bunch of fluffy animals and decides to make war with them? Nonsense.
Your father had a way with words.
Yeah, and he still does. He's going on 90 now. Still farms that land. I'm getting off topic. You may know this planet as one of the border planets the Atrian military would launch attacks from. Commandos landed and came into our town. They didn't do anything horrible, they just told us to leave within 20 hours. In fact, they came around to our houses and told us personally. I was in our garage with my big brother. We were doing some damn fool thing.
He coughed nervously, just then feeling her paw, despite it having been there the entire time.
Take your time.
Marcus shook his head.
I'm fine. One came through the door and told us to leave. My brother was only 16, young and rebellious. He refused, and the soldier grabbed his arm. I don't know how much of what I remember next is reality, but this is how I remember it. My brother, his name was Jonah. He pulled a knife and stabbed the guy in the stomach. He didn't even wince. He just picked Jonah up, and he... I'm sorry.
It's alright, just skip that part.
Okay. After he was done, he came after me. His teeth were covered in blood. More soldiers showed up, and I think I fainted. Later, I found myself with my family on a ship going to another planet. They told me the soldier died, and so did Jonah. I watched the news every day. I saw the war coverage, how ruthless and unstoppable the Atrians were. At least in the beginning. Of course, as the war dragged into a stalemate, those kinds of reports stopped. But I guess Atrians became the only thing I'm afraid of. That and clowns.
What's a clown?
You don't want to know.
Marcus was still shaken up, and he tried taking a few breaths to calm himself down.
Marcus, I understand now. Thank you for sharing.
He shook his head. He had just told his life story to a random stranger, who was Atrian. What was he thinking? He even almost forgot his mission.
I'm sorry for taking up your time. I need to get back to work.
He started for the door. Celia ran in front of him.
Wait,
He sidestepped her quickly.
I've got one last cargo bay to check. Maybe after that we can talk more.
He walked quickly down the hall to the last cargo bay, Celia following behind. If she tried to stop him, he would get suspicious. He entered the bay and looked around. There were 5 or 6 gold alloy crates sitting in the corner of the room. Sirlia came in as he was opening the first.
Hey.
Empty.
Sirlia peered over his shoulder. The crate was indeed empty, as was the next, and the next. He pulled out a scanner from his pocket.
Time to go over the ship with a fine-tooth comb.
Sirlia smiled and hoped Lef hid the components somewhere the scanner wouldn't pick up. Turned out, it didn't matter. Marcus sniffed the air.
Wait. What's that smell?
Sirlia sniffed. Something was burning.
Smells like improperly packed power cells.
He drew his weapon and pointed it at Sirlia, whose paw was on her pistol.
Drop it.
She pulled out the gun silently and let it fall to the floor. He glanced quickly at the empty crates across the room and quickly backed towards them.
I guess the commander was right. To think that whole time I thought you were being nice.
I didn't know about this whole thing until a while ago. I couldn't just stop conversing. It would have looked suspicious. And it kept you away from here, too.
She smiled guiltily.
Sorry.
He opened one of the crates and waved away the smoke, pulling out a rather strange-looking rifle. The battery pack had burned the wood away a little.
Well...
He placed it back so the battery pack wouldn't make contact with the wood, and took out his communicator.
Hey, slow down there, buddy. Drop the phone.
Lef stepped from behind a tall crate, the rifle he bought from Rico in his paws. Marcus's pistol was in Lef's face in an instant, Lef's rifle poking his ribs.
Is that an M1?
I don't know. Drop the pistol in the communicator.
Before Lef could react, Marcus pushed the barrel of the rifle out of the way and pistol-whipped Lef in the chin, sending him flying. He whirled on Sirlia, but he was too late. The pulse of energy from her pistol caused him to convulse and fall to the ground. Lef dragged himself up and rubbed his chin.
Ow! That really hurt.
He kicked away Marcus's gun.
Sorry, man. Nice try, though.
Marcus coughed.
What are you going to do with me, then?
Nothing.
Sirlia leaned over him.
We're really sorry about this. We were kind of forced into it. When you wake up, you'll probably be back with your people, and you'll never see us again.
Despite all that had happened, Marcus didn't like the sound of that. He slumped to the ground, fully unconscious. Lef's SCOM beeped.
Hello? Zach, why didn't you use the intercom? Right, I knew that. What? Already? Did Feldo bring you up to speed? Right. Be right there.
He ran for the door.
Sirlia, take good care of him. We want to return him in the same condition the Solar Federation gave him to us in.
Commander Tony sat on the bridge, frowning.
With a class of ship that could only go Alta 3, they should be in our sights by now.
Gomez nodded.
Carmen, sensor analysis.
Carmen pressed a few buttons.
Sir, sensors show they're going L to 4.6.
I didn't give them enough credit. Increase speed to Alta 6. Are we in range to hail them?
Yes, Commander.
Tony hailed them from his station.
Atrian cargo vessel, the Frontier. Please decrease speed to sublight and deactivate your weapons.
There was no response.
Silence won't get you anywhere.
After a minute, there was an answer. Lef appeared on screen.
Yes? How can...
Tony smiled at Lef as he gawked at his face.
What? Never seen a black man before?
No.
Fair enough. Surrender. We know you have the weapons.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Indeed.
He cut the transmission.
How long until we reach them?
18 minutes.
Tony folded his hands.
Prepare to fire on them if they're not out of hyperspace by the time we're in range.
Lef frowned. Feldo, Zach, and Lena were all looking at him.
Lev? What weapons?
Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag now.
He sighed and gave them the rundown. Lena's expression softened.
Oh, we're in some deep...
Shit.
Zach finished. Lef quickly typed a message and sent it.
I am the worst at keeping secrets. Hopefully someone in the system we're going to gets that message.
What is it?
A prayer.